Moving on to specific features of the ischium bone. First off, we have the greater sciatic notch, and this can be located on the posterior side. Now, when you hear that word greater, that's telling you that it's the larger one, and anytime you see greater, you should think there's going to be a smaller one as well. Otherwise, I would just call it the sciatic notch. If I have to specify this one is the bigger one, I'm also going to have a smaller one, and the opposite of greater is going to be lesser. So we'll see that here in just a second. Ischial spine, this is going to be the pointed bump in between both sciatic notches. That's just called the ischial spine. The lesser sciatic notch is going to be below the ischial spine, so that ischial spine is just right between the two of them, and it's going to be a much smaller indentation than the greater sciatic notch. We'll also have the ischial tuberosity. If you recall, a tuberosity is going to be a rough projection. So this just looks like a rough patch that's found on the ischium bone at the very bottom. We also have something called the ischial ramus, which looks like a bridge going up to the pubis bone. And we'll see that here in just a moment. So now this is still that same right os coxa, but this time we're going to focus on the ischium bone down here. So greater sciatic notch is going to be this big indentation right here. And then you can see the lesser sciatic notch is much smaller right there. Now, the point in between the two of them here, this point there, that is the ischial spine. So the ischial spine is the point between the two sciatic notches. And let's erase the color so we can see that a little more clearly. So there it is. So greater sciatic notch, this big indentation. Lesser sciatic notch is a smaller one. And then the ischial spine sits in between the two of them. We also have ischial tuberosity, which is going to be this rough part right there. You can see that it looks like there's lots of bumps and crevices all along it. And that whole thing is just called the ischial tuberosity of the ischium bone. For the ramus, it's just going to be the extension that is going up to the pubis bone. So recall, this is the pubis bone in the front. So if you look, there's a bridge that connects them. And we'll talk about this bridge that's closer to the pubis bone when we get there. But this bottom half going from the body of the ischium, so about to right there, just this half of the bridge is called the ischial ramus. And so this is the body of the ischium, just kind of that main bony component. But then this extension, or this arm that sticks out there, just this half is called the ischial ramus. Going on to the pubis bone, we have the obturator foramen. Now, this is also a part of the ischium bone, but this is the big hole that those bridges are surrounding. That whole thing's called the obturator foramen. We'll talk a little more about that later on in this unit. We also have two rami, which is plural, and they come from the pubis bone. So they look like little arms that stick out, or bridges. We have one on top, which is just called the superior pubic ramus, and the one on bottom is actually going to connect to that ischial ramus, and that's called the inferior pubic ramus. So as we take a look here, we're going to focus more on the pubis bone, which is right here. Here's that body of it. So this big hole right here, pretty easy to find. It's a good landmark to use. It's called the obturator foramen. And then we're going to look at the bridges. So this entire top extension going out to the ischium right there, this is the superior pubic ramus. So it's just that whole top bridge that forms the roof of the obturator foramen. And then only half of the bottom one here, that is the inferior pubic ramus. And then if you'll recall, just this part that comes from the ischium that's actually going to connect to the inferior pubic ramus is the ischial ramus.